I was never supposed to take this job, but I needed the money. And by the time I realized what I'd walked into, the gates had already locked behind me. My name is Daniel Mercer. Until 6 months ago, I was a satellite imaging technician for a private geological survey company. It was boring, legal work, mapping terrain changes, forest density, old logging roads. Then the contract came through in late October. A blind bid, no client name, just a set of coordinates deep in the Thomas Jefferson National Forest, Virginia, and a pay rate that made my supervisor go pale. 3 weeks of night shifts, no phone, no GPS logging. I asked who the client was. My supervisor just slid a nondescript keycard across the desk and said, "Don't ask questions. Just drive to the gate and tap this." I should have walked out right then, but my daughter's medical bills were 3 months overdue, so I took the keycard. I drove 7 hours west on empty highways, watching my rearview mirror the whole time, because something about those coordinates felt wrong. The forest got denser. The road signs got older, rusted over. Around midnight, the pavement turned to gravel, and the gravel turned to dirt that wasn't on any map I'd ever seen. The trees leaned inward like they were watching. My headlights caught a chain-link fence stretching across the road. No markings, no lights, just rusted metal and razor wire curling into the dark. I tapped the key card against a small black box I almost missed. The gate opened without a sound. That was the first moment my stomach turned to ice, because gates like that don't exist without power lines. And there were no power lines anywhere. I drove another 40 minutes down a road that seemed to repair itself as I went. Potholes vanished under my tires. Fallen branches were already pushed to the shoulders. Fresh breaks in the wood. Someone was maintaining this road actively in real time, but I never saw a single vehicle or light. Then the trees opened up, and I saw it, a military base that officially doesn't exist. I know that sounds like a cliche, but I checked later. Every satellite archive, every declassified installation map. This place isn't on any of them. It looked like a small town built inside a fortress. Low concrete buildings, a water tower with no name, 3 massive hangars with blast doors big enough to house aircraft that don't fit in normal runways. The strangest part? The lights were on. Every window, every lamppost. A soft amber glow that didn't flicker or hum. I parked near what looked like an admin building and sat in my car for 10 minutes, just listening. No wind, no insects, just a low, rhythmic vibration coming up through the tires. A sound like a heartbeat, but mechanical. Wrong. I turned off the engine. The vibration didn't stop. That was the second moment I knew I wasn't in a normal place, because the ground itself seemed to be breathing. And whatever was making that sound was directly beneath me. A door opened across the courtyard. A figure stepped out, tall, dressed in plain black tactical gear with no patches, no rank, no name. He didn't wave, didn't speak, just turned and walked back inside, leaving the door open, like he knew exactly why I was there, like he'd been waiting. I grabbed my equipment bag and followed. The inside of the admin building was immaculate. White walls, fluorescent lights that didn't flicker, a hallway that stretched farther than the building's exterior suggested. I counted my steps later. The exterior was 50 feet wide. The hallway was 120 feet long. That was the third moment I knew something was deeply wrong. But I kept walking because a voice behind a steel door said, "Come in, Mr. Mercer. We have your daughter's file open right now." I won't describe the man I met inside that room. His face is the only thing I've tried to forget, but I'll tell you what he said. He sat behind a glass desk with no computer, no papers, nothing, just a single manila folder with my daughter's name on it. He said, "You're going to work night shifts in Hangar 3. You will log everything you see. You will not speak to anyone. You will not leave the base until the 3 weeks are complete. If you try, the gate won't open for your keycard anymore." I asked what was in Hangar 3. He slid a photo across the desk. It showed a hole in the ground. Not a crater, not a sinkhole, a perfectly circular hole about 30 feet wide, with sides so smooth they looked polished. The photo had no date, no location, but the dirt around the hole was the same red clay I'd driven over for the last hour. He said, "That's your workstation. Don't look into it for too long. And don't bring a light. Then he smiled. Not a friendly smile. A smile that said he already knew I wouldn't last 3 weeks. I walked to Hangar 3 alone. The blast doors were already open a crack, just wide enough for one person to slip through. Inside, the air was cold. Not forest cold. Basement cold. Root cellar cold. The kind of cold that comes from deep underground. I could hear the vibration again, louder now, rising up from the floor. And in the center of the hangar, lit by a single red emergency light, was the hole. It looked exactly like the photo. Perfect circle, smooth sides, and completely black. Not dark, black. The kind of black that doesn't reflect light back. I leaned over the edge just a few inches and felt air moving upward, warm, wet, smelling faintly of iron and something else. Something sweet that I couldn't place. That's when I heard the first sound from below. Not a voice, not an animal, a whisper, but not in any language I've ever known. And it was repeating my daughter's name. I pulled back so fast I hit my head on a metal railing. The whisper stopped. The vibration continued. I sat there on the cold concrete floor for what felt like an hour, telling myself it was exhaustion, stress, carbon monoxide from the drive. But I knew better, because when I finally stood up to leave, I noticed something on the far wall of the hangar. A massive schedule board. 7 columns. 21 rows. Each row had a date. Each column had a time. And every single slot was filled with a name. Not worker IDs. Not code names. First and last names. My name was in the 3rd row. Tonight's date. 2 a.m. shift. But I wasn't alone on that board. There were hundreds of names. And at the very bottom, written in fresh marker that still looked wet, was the name of a woman who went missing from Roanoke, Virginia, for years ago. I recognized her face from a missing persons poster I'd seen at a gas station. The board didn't say what happened to her after her shift, but the hole was still open, and the whisper was still waiting. At 1:45 a.m., a knock came on my door. 3 slow raps. Then nothing. I opened the door. The hallway was empty. But on the floor, someone had placed a white hard hat and a small notebook. The notebook's first page said, "Log everything. Don't look too long. Don't bring a light." The same words a man had said, but written in handwriting that wasn't his. I recognized the handwriting. It was my own, from 10 years ago. I found my old college notebooks last year. The loops on the letter G, the slant to the right. This was my handwriting. But I had never written these words before today, which meant either someone had perfectly forged a decade-old sample of my penmanship, or I had written this notebook at some point in the future and sent it back. Neither option made me feel safe. I put on the hard hat and walked back to Hangar 3. The blast doors were open wider now, wide enough for 2 people. I slipped inside. The red light was still on. The hole was still there, but something had changed. The edges of the hole weren't smooth anymore. There were scratches, fresh scratches, long, parallel grooves cut into the concrete and dirt, leading downward, like someone had climbed out, or something had been dragged in. I stood at the edge and listened. No whisper this time, just a vibration, louder now, so loud I could feel it in my teeth. I opened the notebook and wrote, 2:07 a.m., no visual change. Auditory anomaly persists. That was a lie. There was a visual change. The scratches. But I didn't want to write that down, because writing it down made it real. For the next 3 hours, nothing happened. I sat on a metal stool 20 feet from the hole. I wrote down temperature readings. Humidity. Air pressure. The numbers didn't make sense. The air coming out of the hole was warmer than the surface air, but it should have been colder. Deep holes are cold. This wasn't. At 5:15 a.m., I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. No one was there, but the blast doors had closed completely. I ran to them, pushed, pulled. Nothing. The doors were sealed. I was trapped inside Hangar 3 with a hole and the vibration in the warm, iron-sweet air. That's when I noticed the second change. The red light was flickering, not failing, flickering in a pattern. Long flash, short flash. Long flash, long flash, short. I didn't know Morse code then. I learned it later. That pattern meant, come closer. I didn't go closer. I pressed my back against the doors and slid down to the floor. I stayed there until 7 a.m. when the vibration stopped abruptly. The red light went solid again. The blast doors opened on their own. I walked out into the courtyard. Daylight had come to the base. But it was wrong. The sun was up, yes, but there were no shadows. None. Every building, every lamppost, every vehicle cast no shadow at all. I looked at my own feet. No shadow. I held up my hand. No shadow. The light was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I walked back to my room. The analog clock on the wall showed 7:15 a.m. The second hand ticked normally. No pauses. I sat on the cot and stared at the wall for 3 hours. Then I opened the notebook. Page 2 now had writing on it. Writing that hadn't been there before. It said, "You looked anyway. That's why we chose you." The handwriting was mine. Day 2. Night 2. The same routine. But the whole changed every time I looked away. I'd turn to write in my notebook. When I looked back, the scratches were deeper, longer. There were more of them. By the fourth night, the scratches had formed what looked like words. Not English, not any language I knew, but the shapes repeated. Patterns. 7 symbols. Then the same 7 symbols again. Then again, like a message being practiced, like something was learning to write. On the 5th night, I broke protocol. I brought a light, a small LED flashlight from my equipment bag. I told myself it was for safety, for better logging. But the truth is simpler. I was terrified of the dark, not the absence of light, the kind of dark that looked back. I pointed the flashlight into the hole. The beam went down about 40 feet. Then it stopped, not because the hole ended, because the light hit something, a surface, dark gray, smooth, curved slightly, like a dome or a skull. The light reflected off it just enough for me to see that the surface was moving, breathing, slowly, in and out. The vibration was coming from this thing. The heartbeat was coming from this thing. And as I watched, a crack formed on the surface, a vertical line, then another, horizontal. The cracks opened, like eyelids, and behind them was something that looked back at me. I dropped the flashlight. It tumbled down the hole, clattering against the walls, bouncing, falling. The light spun wildly. For a moment, I saw the walls of the hole clearly. They weren't dirt. They weren't concrete. They were covered in symbols. Thousands of them, carved into every surface. And between the symbols, embedded in the walls, were bones. Human bones. Skulls. Ribs. Fingers. All fused into the earth like they'd grown there. The flashlight hit the curved surface below and went dark, but the surface didn't. It was glowing now. A faint, pulsing blue. Like a bruise. Like a vein. Like something waking up after a very long sleep. I ran. I don't remember opening the blast doors. I don't remember crossing the courtyard. I remember waking up in my room. On the floor, the notebook open beside me. Page after page was filled with my handwriting. Dates, times, log entries I didn't remember writing. The last entry said, Night 6. It spoke to me. It said the base doesn't exist because the base is a lid, and lids keep things down. But lids can crack. I saw the crack. I made it worse when I brought the light. It's been waiting for light for 12,000 years, and now it has a name. It told me its name. I can't write it here, but I can hear it now. Always, even when I'm awake. I closed the notebook. The clock on the wall showed 3:33 a.m. The second hand was ticking backward. I stopped sleeping after night 6. Not because I wasn't tired. My body was breaking down. My hands shook constantly. I hadn't eaten in days. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the blue glow. Every time I blinked, I heard the name it gave me. I won't write it here. I won't speak it. But I'll tell you what it feels like to know that name. It feels like a splinter in your brain that grows deeper every hour. It feels like someone standing behind you at all times, breathing on your neck, but you can never turn around fast enough to see them. By the morning of night 7, I wasn't Daniel Mercer anymore. I was just a container. holding something that didn't belong to me. I tried to leave. I walked to the main gate at dawn. The chain-link fence stretched across the road, just like the first night. The razor wire gleamed. The small black box was there. I tapped my keycard. Nothing happened. I tapped it again. And again, the box didn't light up. The gate didn't open. I climbed the fence. I made it to the top, to the razor wire. That's when I felt it. A hand on my ankle. Cold, not human cold. Dead cold. Fridge cold. I looked down. There was no one there, but the grip was real, tight enough to leave bruises. I looked closer at the fence. The razor wire wasn't rusted. It was new, and wrapped around every strand, woven between the barbs, was hair. Long, dark hair. Human hair. Dried and brittle, but unmistakable. I recognized the color. The same color as a woman, missing from Roanoke. The same name I'd seen on the schedule board. I let go. I fell back onto the base side of the fence. The grip released immediately. I lay in the dirt for a long time, staring at the sky. No shadows. Still no shadows. The sun was fully up, but the ground beneath me was featureless gray. I crawled back to the admin building. The hallways were different now. Longer. The doors were in different places. I passed the same intersection 4 times. Each time, the lighting was slightly different, slightly dimmer. I realized the base was changing, rearranging itself, keeping me inside, not with walls or locks, with geometry, with space that bent when I wasn't looking. I found a man, the one in black tactical gear. He was standing in the courtyard, facing Hangar 3. He didn't turn when I approached. He just said, "You brought a light." His voice was flat, empty. "You weren't supposed to bring a light." I grabbed his shoulder and turned him around. His face was wrong, not deformed, not injured, wrong. His eyes were too far apart. His mouth was too wide, and he was smiling, but the smile wasn't his. It was something else wearing his face, something that hadn't quite learned how human expressions worked. He said, "The lid is cracking faster now, because of you, because you looked, because you brought the light. They're going to keep you here until the crack is wide enough. Then they won't need you anymore." I asked who they were. He pointed at Hangar 3. The blast doors were gone. Not open. Gone. The hangar was just a shell now. And inside, the hole was visible from the courtyard. It was wider, much wider, at least 60 feet across. And the blue glow was bright enough to cast shadows. My shadow. For the first time in days, I saw my own shadow. It was stretched long and thin, pointing directly at the hole, like it wanted to go back, like it had never really left. Night 7, my final shift. I didn't go to Hangar 3 willingly. The base moved me there. Hallways shifted behind me. Doors opened and closed, herding me like an animal. When I reached the hangar entrance, the air was hot, not warm. Hot, like standing over a grill. The vibration was so strong now that my vision blurred with every pulse. I could hear the name clearly, not whispered, spoken, in a voice that was mine and not mine. The thing in the hole was learning to sound human. It was practicing, and it was getting better. I stood at the edge of the hole. It was huge now, nearly 100 feet across. The curved surface below was no longer a dome. It was rising, pushing upward. Cracks covered its entire surface. Blue light poured through every fissure. And through those cracks, I could see what was underneath. Not a creature, not a monster. Something older. Something that didn't have a shape, because shapes are temporary. This thing was permanent. It was the reason the base didn't exist. Because the base wasn't built to hide it from the world. The base was built to hide the world from it. And I had helped it wake up. The thing spoke. Not in words, in memory. I saw my daughter, not as she is now, as she will be 5 years from now, standing in a field at night, alone, the same blue glow behind her, the same cracks opening in the ground at her feet. She was screaming my name, and I wasn't there. I could never be there, because I was still here, still at the base, still watching. The thing showed me that no matter what I did next, I had already lost her, The moment I accepted the keycard, the moment I drove through that gate, I had chosen her ending, not because the thing was cruel, because the thing didn't understand cruelty. It only understood hunger, and had been hungry for a very long time. I don't remember the rest of night 7. I woke up outside the main gate. The chain-link fence was gone. The road was dirt again, overgrown with weeds. My car was parked on the shoulder, keys in the ignition, engine running. The clock on the dashboard showed the same time I had arrived. Midnight, October 23rd, the same day I had first driven here. I checked my phone. The date hadn't changed. No time had passed, but I had lived 7 nights. I had seen the thing in the hole. I had heard its name, and I had brought back proof. Look at my hands. Look closely. The fingernails on my left hand are gone. Not broken, not torn, gone, as if I had clawed at something for hours. Something smooth, something curved, something that didn't want to let me go. I don't remember doing that, but the dirt under my remaining nails is red. The same red clay from inside the base. The same red clay from the hole. I drove home. I held my daughter for 3 hours. I didn't sleep. I couldn't, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw the blue glow. And every time I opened them, I saw the cracks. Not on the floor. On her. Small at first. On her arms. Her neck. Behind her ears. Faint lines that weren't there yesterday. I checked old photos. The lines weren't in any of them, but they're there now, and they're growing. The thing told me I had already lost her, but it didn't say when. It didn't say how. It just showed me the field, the blue light, her scream. I'm writing this from a motel room 200 miles away from my family. I left last night, not because I don't love them, because I looked in the mirror this morning, and my own eyes weren't mine anymore. Something else is looking through them. Something that learned to sound human, and it's still practicing. The base isn't gone. I checked satellite images again last night. The coordinates show nothing. Just trees. Just dirt. But I know the truth. The base is still there. It's still running. And every night, at exactly 2 a.m., the schedule board added a new name. Last night, it added mine, not Daniel Mercer. My full name. First, middle, last. And beneath it, in fresh marker that looked what even to the satellite photo I couldn't possibly have taken because the base doesn't exist, it wrote, "Returning soon. Bring a light. I'm going back tonight. Not because I want to, because the cracks on my daughter's arms grew longer this morning. And the thing in the hole told me, in a voice that sounded exactly like my own, that there's only one way to close a lid once it starts cracking. You have to be on the other side when it closes. If you're watching this and you ever see coordinates that don't exist on any map, or a gate that opens without power, or a base that appears and disappears on satellite images, do not go closer. Do not bring a light. Do not look into the hole. And if you hear a whisper repeating the name of someone you love, run. Run in any direction. It won't matter, because it already knows where you sleep. It already knows your daughter's name, and it has already added you to board. The last entry in my notebook isn't in my handwriting. It's in something else's. It says, "Thank you for the light. We were so cold. We are so hungry, and you have so many names left to give. The base doesn't exist, but the gate opens every night. And somewhere right now, someone is tapping a key card against a small black box. Welcome to your first shift.